Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Just a moment. So I think I need to adjust my camera a bit. Okay. Yeah. BFN 104. Yes, BFN 104 is the course, and this actually promises to be a very interesting section. The course itself, it's a very interesting one, and okay, so just sitting the more we proceed. Right, awesome. Okay, so BFN 104 is the course, and it's all about BFN 104, which is one of the core courses for students and department of well, as elements of banking. It's a three units, three credit units. It's one of the core courses for students of accounting. So so we are just okay. So it's one of the core courses for students in the department of accounting. So it's a very interesting one. It says a lot about banking in Nigeria. A lot of things about the history, about what banking, how it started, and how far it has gone. The processes at which it, the proceedings of the process of how it has grown so far. Okay. Okay. So we're just gonna kick off right away. So I'm just gonna set my material, and we are good to go. Okay. So we have, according to the templates of what we have today, we have history and the banking system in Nigeria. So we just okay before we talk about before we go into main details of tonight's tutorial, when we talk about banking in Nigeria, we have to talk about bank itself. What role is the banking sector playing in the country? How well actually the banking sector, how well is the banking sector actually playing their role? How effective is it? The rules and regulation guiding this sector. What are the expectations from them, from the governing body, which is the CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria? What are the things expected from the Central Bank of Nigeria? What are the things expected from our local banks to the Central Bank of Nigeria? All this we'll be discussing in tonight's tutorial as we go through our material. So with this being said, let's move into it. Okay, Miss Rosita, good evening, you're here. Okay, we have Mustan, good evening, you're welcome. Okay, Mustan said we are good to go. Yes, we are good to go. So I'm going to switch this off so we can just go straight into it. Okay, so we have bank. The word bank itself, we're going to be talking about what bank is all about. So what do we understand by the word bank? Is anybody who wants to quickly say a thing about that? What do we understand by the word bank itself? Okay, bank. Can we say something about what bank itself is all about? Okay. Awesome. I can see somebody here. Somebody said something is safekeeping. Awesome. Is safekeeping. I think that's more like straight to the point. Does anybody else want to say something before I need this class to be as interactive as possible? So check my comment section. Okay, thank you for that. Thank it. So we have bank. What do we understand by the word bank? The word bank itself simply implies an outfit legally registered to accept funds. An outfit register legally to accept funds and other valuables for safekeeping. Now, a bank is an outfit legally an outfit legally registered to accept legally registered to accept funds and valuables for what? Safekeeping. That is the most important part of it all. Safekeeping. It's not good enough to accept, it's good enough to be legally registered, and if you can't prefer this, then all is a waste. It's up to nothing. So an outfit, now these are the keywords: an outfit legally registered. Legally, any outfit that is not legally registered that accept funds and valuables for safekeeping is not recognized by the government. Funds, and we have valuables for what? Safekeeping. We have an outfit legally registered to accept funds and valuables for safekeeping is what we may refer to as bank. Now, it is oftentimes known as acceptance house. Another key point, it is oftentimes, okay, just before we go into details of things, I spoke, in our retrospective classes today. One thing I usually tell people on the classroom is that whenever we are live, in any of these classes, whenever we are live, it is expected of students to have their JOTA. I said in the very first tutorial we had today that for all your courses, there is need for you to get 40 leaves, minimum of 40 leaves. And if you feel 40 leaves is too much for a course, you can split it into two. You can divide, so 40 leaves can have note making for 2 courses. If that's okay with you, then it's fine. Now the bottom line is, at every course you have, attend all classes of all those courses, you have to take notes. This is a lecture, and in our first semester 100 level, we treated notes taking and notes making. At what point do you make notes? At what point do you take notes? Now this is a classroom. So you are taking lectures. You do what? You take notes. So it is expected of you to take notes. And what are you to take note of? To take note of all those key points I am dropping. So do well to do that. And at the end of this class, I'm expecting from each and every one of us a note to be submitted to our respective classes. If you're in the private room, in the private classroom, you have to submit your note of this class to the classroom. And if you are in the general class, do also to do that as well. So thank you very much, and let's go back into it. So we have it is also, bank is also referred to as an acceptance house. An acceptance house. Okay. Acceptance house. Acceptance house. Bank is also referred to as an acceptance house. So let's take that acceptance house in the sense that when you bring your valuables there for safekeeping, it will be accepted. Now, banking. Now we've just spoken about what bank is. Now we're going to be talking about banking. I believe we know that banking is different from bank. A bank is said to be an outfit legally registered to accept funds and valuable for safekeeping, and it's sometimes referred to as acceptance house. But speaking of banking now, it's a different thing we're talking about, though it's still in the same line. Now, banking is a process of legally organizing an outfit to create. The process of legally legally, the process of legally organizing an outfit, organizing an outfit, the process of legally organizing an outfit. Now this outfit you are legally organizing is for what purpose? Now, to create, safekeep, manage and transfer money. Organizing an outfit to create, safekeep, to create, okay, to create, safekeep, manage and transfer money. Safekeep, manage and transfer money. To create, safekeep, manage and transfer money from one person to another, from business to businesses, or in a nutshell, between surplus and deficit spending of economy. Now, let me not take that. That is too much. Let me not take that way. Now, it is said to be banking. Now, it's said to be a process of legally organizing an outfit in order to create, safekeep, manage, and transfer money from individual to one person to the other, or between businesses. Money from individuals or businesses. That's that. And it can as well be referred to as, the surplus and deficit spending economic agent units, creating an opportunity for the surplus and deficit spending for economic agent units. We have that as that. So that's that for banking. And we also now, we can talk about now the bottom line of banking business is an effective payment and intermediary system. An effective, the bottom line, the bottom line of a banking system equals an effective, the bottom line of banking system equals an effective payment and intermediary system. An effective payment and intermediary system. An effective payment and intermediary system. That is the bottom line of banking. The bottom line of banking is an effective and intermediary payment, is an effective payment and intermediary system. That is what it's all about, banking. Speaking of which, bank, we talked about bank. Okay, we talked about banking now, and there are a lot of similarities between these two, although there are two different things. Bank itself is an outfit, registered legally to accept funds and valuables for what? Safekeeping. And it's also referred to as acceptance house. And we have banking. Now, banking is a process. Bank is the outfit. Banking is the process, while bank is the outfit. Now, banking itself now is also the process of legally organizing, legally putting an outfit together in order to create, in order to safekeep, manage, transfer resources, money, valuables from individuals to individuals, or businesses to businesses. So we have that as that, and we have the bottom line of banking, which is referred to as the banking system as an effective payment and intermediary system. So we have that as that. So we're just going to move on. Okay, so we have the next thing we have here. Now, in Nigeria in 1952 was seen as an era of free banking. There's something we call free banking. Free banking era in Nigeria. Free banking era in Nigeria. Okay, just a moment. Set up. Just a moment. Free banking era in Nigeria. All right. Okay, so we are good to go. Just in there to check up on free banking era in Nigeria, and this is credited to the year 1952. 1952, whereby free banking era in Nigeria. So what happened in 1952 that's referred to as the free banking era? Now we'll find out pretty soon. Now, in 1952, this free banking era is characterized with the fact that the only requirement for banking operation to register now this free banking era simply means then that for a new bank or someone who has the desire to open a financial institute, the requirements are not as difficult as it is now. Then the only thing that is required is the only banking operation that was registration of the same via companies, banking ordinance. Simply means that the requirement for this particular time is very minimal. We'll get to understand more as we proceed into the class. Now, this banking era is said to be the banking boom. It's also referred to as era of banking boom. A lot of banks came up in this era. A lot of banks were created in this era. Over 170 banks in this boom era. Over 170 banks came up in this era, this free banking era in 1952. Over 170 banks. Now then, registration as a bank was a function of a proceeding bank. Then registration as a bank was a function of a proceeding bank, meaning that the registration of a bank now registration only costs as at then to register a new bank cost 25,000 naira. As at then it cost 25,000 naira by indigenous bank in I think by what we call indigenous bank, indigenous 25,000 naira registration by indigenous bank and 20,000 naira by expatriate. We have 20,000 naira. Expatriates. Okay, let me put this well. Registration for expatriate. Register. 20,000 naira for expatriate. If I'm not mistaken. Expatriate. So locally and international banks, we have indigenous bank 25,000 naira, and for expatriates it's 20,000 naira. Now, and the financial, there has to be a financial reserve. There has to be a financial reserve coming from annual profit. 25 reserve from annual profit is 20% reserve from 20% of reserve, 20% reserve of annual profit. Now, this is what it takes then to know when I said it is no longer as it was before. In this era, it is referred to as the free banking era, the boom era in 1952, whereby over 117 banks came into existence. And we have for indigenous bank, it's just for 25,000 naira, and for expatriate, we have 20,000 naira, which is 20% reserve of annual profits. So we get to know when I say it is indeed the boom era. So we have that as that. Something happened in 1958. An amazing event happened in 1958. And what is this event that happened in 1958? Now, the promulgation, promulgation of banking ordinance. Now, in 1958, we just concluded about the boom and the everything, the boom era in the banking industry, and unfortunately, it did not last long because on the part of banks, something happened. In 1958, this is what happened. In 1958, we have 1958. After the era of bank boom era, free banking era, in 1958, promulgation in 1958, promulgation of banking ordinance failed as a result of lack of proper regulation. 1958, promulgation of 1958 failed as promulgation in the sense that the rules and regulations guiding the banking sector, guiding the industry. Now, the promulgation of 1958 failed as a result of failure. As a result of what? Failure and lack of proper regulation and control. Failure of proper regulation control. Now, the promulgation of 1958 failed as a result of failure of proper regulation and control of the industry. So this gave rise to a new ordinance, and this ordinance increased the minimum paid up capital of expatriate bank to 400,000 naira, all the way from 20,000 naira. It shoots up to 400,000 naira. And the financial rate of reserve fund for all categories to 25,000 naira. Now we have that as that, causing an increment causing and an increment in the minimum paid up capital. Minimum paid up capital of expatriates to 400,000 and a reserve of 25 25%. So that's what it is. So it's no longer business as usual. That happened after the failure of promulgation of 1958. That is quite unfortunate, believe me. So we have that as that. Now, speaking of which, when we're talking about the Central Bank of Nigeria, there's a CBN. So we have Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. Now, what is the Central Bank of Nigeria, and what role does the Central Bank of Nigeria plays in the financial institution industry? So we have the Central Bank of Nigeria is the epicenter of a nation's financial system. The epicenter. The epicenter. Epi, okay, is the epicenter of the epicenter okay, I have of the nation's financial system, of a nation's financial system. Epicenter of the nation's financial system. Can refer to that as the CBN. Now, the CBN is also the apex of a country's banking system. The apex of a country's banking system. Banking system. The apex of a country's banking system is what we refer to as CBN. Just a moment. Okay, so we are good to go. So we are good to go. Just a moment, excuse me. So we also have the central bank as what we refer to as the epicenter of a nation's financial system. It is also referred to as the apex of a country banking system. The central bank is empowered by the law to regulate only bank empowered, the only financial institution empowered by the law to regulate other financial institutions, to regulate other financial institutions, empowered by law to regulate and supervise commercial bank and other forms of banking in some way the country. Now, not just to regulate alone, to also supervise. Now, regulate and supervise commercial commercial banks and other financial institution financial institution financial institution financial institution in yeah. Okay, we have financial institution. So the Central Bank of Nigeria is the only financial institution that is legally authorized by the law to supervise and regulate banks, commercial banks, and other financial institutions in the country. So we have that is that, and we may move on. So we have and the last, okay, two more points. We have the sole issuer of the country's legal tender, meaning that it is only central bank that has the legal authority and jurisdiction to produce our legal tender, meaning to produce our currency. Produce our currency. Just a moment. So we have that as that. So we have that as that. It is Central Bank of Nigeria is the sole issuer of the country's legal tender. Sole issuer, the sole issuer of the country legal tender. This simply means that it is only the Central Bank of Nigeria that is legally backed up to produce, to print money, to make money. They are the only legal institution to do that. And lastly, it is an overseer of the nation's financial system. The overseer, it is the overseer of the nation financial system. It's an overseer of the nation's financial system. That is what the Central Bank of Nigeria is capable of doing. So we have it. Let's take it once before I erase it. So we have it from here. Now the Central Bank of Nigeria is the epicenter. I think I should highlight that. Those are the key points. The epicenter. Yeah. Epicenter of the nation's financial system. It is also the apex of the country's banking system. Now, it is also the only financial institution empowered by the law to regulate, to supervise, not just regulate alone, but to keep an eye on other commercial banks and financial institutions. Now, it's also said to be the sole, meaning that the sole and one and only, there are no other institutions backed up by law to issue the country's legal tender. The sole issuer of the country's legal tender, which is the money, legal tender of the country, is its currency. Now, the overseer of the nation's financial system. Overseer, nation's financial system. So we have all that under the the Central Bank of Nigeria. So all this being said, we're just going to talk about the functions of the Central Bank of Nigeria before we move to some serious and intense business. So I'm just going to erase this and we may proceed thereafter. Okay. So very quickly, we're just going to run through the functions of the Central Bank of Nigeria. These are not news to us, I believe, but we're just going to run through it very quickly. We're going to run through the functions very quickly. So we have functions, functions, functions of CBN. So we have very quickly, we have one, the regulation of the country in accordance with requirements for business. Regulation. Now, one of the functions of the CBN is that CBN is responsible for regulating the currency, regulation of the currency in accordance with the requirement of the business and general public for which its purpose is granted. Now, let's just take this as they are responsible for the regulation of currency. Regulation of currency. I think that's fine. You get the point. Now, General Banking Agency for the state. General Banking Agency serves as a general banking agency for the state. Serve as the general banking agency for the state. Now, it's also said that the CBN is also responsible for the custody of cash reserved for commercial banks. Cash, custody of the cash, custodian of reserved cash for commercial, custodian of reserved cash for commercial banks. Reserved custodian of reserved cash for commercial banks. So we also have, okay, the comment section is not bubbling. If you are here to introduce yourself, do well to introduce yourself. Okay, we have Rosita, we have Mustang, we also have Think It. Very well then, so let's just proceed. So we have the settlement of clearance and balances between bank. Okay, control of credit in accordance with the credit control. Just going to take down this for credit control. I think that is enough, and we can move on. And just one more thing before we move on. Someone said something amazing about the central bank, and it says that the central bank is the bank of. Now, I said central bank is a bank of bankers. Bank of bankers. Who said that? What an amazing one. That is Samuelson. Okay. Samuelson said CBN, the bank of bankers. The bank of bankers. CBN is the bank of bankers, and he said that. Samuelson said that. Also, we're going to be talking about the historical development of the Central Bank of Nigeria before we call it a wrap for today. Now, speaking of which, the Central Bank of Nigeria existed. The Central Bank of Nigeria, we're going to be talking about the history. Now, before the Central Bank of Nigeria, something existed. Now, before inception of Central Bank of Nigeria, have you thought about it? What was in existence which bodies was responsible for the country's financial management. What was responsible, what body, yeah, what are the things put in place to ensure that the country's financial management is done properly. Now let's talk about that. So before the inception of CBN, there's what we have in existence. We have what we refer to as WAC. WAC meaning, write that in full, before CBN was WAC. Okay, so what we talk about WAC, what does it stand for in full? Now, WAC in full means the West African Currency Board. West African Currency, and we have board. WAC existed before CBN took over. Now we have West Africa Currency Board, and which was established in the year 1912. 1912. WAC was established in the year 1912. So we have that is that. So we're going into details of things now. So I'm just going to erase this so we can have space. Space to ourselves. Here. Okay, just going to erase this still. So, very well then. With that being said, so we're going to be talking about 1912 established WAC. WAC in 1912 have three main functions. Three main functions. And these three main functions that WAC is responsible for are: 1. Issue a West African currency. Issuing of West African currency. 2, we have ensure a speedy convertibility of the currency with old silver currency. Ensure speedy, okay, how do we put that now? Flexibility in conversion. Flexibility. Okay, we have silver, old silver currency. Flexibility of converting currencies like the old silver. Yeah, the old silver currency. Flexibility of converting currencies like the old silver. So we have 3, to provide means whereby the colonial government will share from the proceeds of currency issue. Sharing the proceeds of the currency. Sharing of the proceed of the currency by the colonial government. So these are the three main functions. Three main functions of WAC in 1912. Issuing of West African currency, flexibility of converting currencies like the old silver, sharing the proceeds of the currency by, let me write this properly, the proceeds of the currency by the colonial government. So with that being said, let's head straight, let's move on. Okay, so we have now with the invent of WAC in 19 but after the invent of WAC in 1959, something amazing happened. In 1959, the game changed, and there came into play what we now refer to as the Central Bank of Nigeria. In 1959, the Central Bank of Nigeria was established by the Central Bank Act of 1958. In 1959, the Central Bank, the CBN, was established. The CBN was established. CBN was established. In accordance to the Central Bank Act of 1958, to the Central Bank, Central Bank, in accordance to the Central Bank Act of 1958, CB Act of 1958. Central Bank came in 1959. So that's that for that. And then we move on. Okay. So we have the journey of Central Bank of Nigeria started somewhere. Central Bank of Nigeria wasn't just introduced in a day. It wasn't just introduced in the year 1959. Just a moment. Hydrated a bit. Okay. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria was not just introduced in the year 1959. The process has started long before it was eventually introduced. So now let's talk about how it all started. So now this journey started in 1952. The journey of establishing CBN began in 1952. Now, in 1952, a private member of the Federal House of Representatives in 1952, where that was when the journey to establish the federal government's CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria. The journey started in 1952 when a member of the private House of Representatives moved the motion, and this motion that he moved ignited the setting up of a commission to see the possibility of having what we refer to as CBN. Now, a member of the private house of representative moved a motion. Now, his motion ignited the setting up of a commission to look into the prospects of having of establishing having CBN. And that was how it started in the year 1952 when the member of private House of Representatives moved the motion that we should have something like this, and the motion ignited the setting up of a commission to look into the prospect of having CBN, and the journey began. So erase this so we can move on. All right. Okay. So with that being said, before the motion was moved in 1952, something similar had happened. Before the motion was moved by the private member of the Federal House of Representatives, something similar has happened. Now, first, it happened in the case of J.L. Fisher Commission of 1952. That same 1952, J.L. Fisher had moved a motion as well, and the commission was established from the Bank of England. Now we have J.L. Fisher, Fisher's Commission, of 1952. J.L. Fisher Commission of 1952 from the Bank of England. From the Bank of England. J.L. Fisher's Commission of 1952 from the Bank of England. And the IBRD Commission on examining the possibility of we have IBRD Commission of 1952 as well. Of 1952. Okay. IBRD Commission. Okay, let me just put this. Let me stop here. So now, before the motion moved by the private member of the Federal House of Representatives was moved and a commission was ignited, before that, before the inception of that, we already have situations like J. Fisher's Commission of 1952 from the Bank of England, and we also have the IBRD. Now, the IBRD simply means the International Bank Reconstruction and Development. International Bank, International Bank of Reconstruction and Development. Now, there have been two different commissions, from Fisher and from IBRD, but unfortunately, both commissions were rejected. The first terrible answer, no. So the commission were dissolved. So, and the possibility then was turned down. And fast forward to what happened in the in the federal, in the federal House of Representatives. Fast forward to then, there have been these two commissions already, but they were both rejected. Yeah, they were both rejected, and it was termed as premature. The report from both concluded it was premature to establish a central bank of Nigeria due to absence of highly organized financial system in Nigeria. It was rejected, and it's the reason based on the fact that it's referred to as premature due to the fact that there are no highly organized financial system yet in Nigeria. So we have that as that. Okay. So I think we are close to calling it a wrap for today. So we're going to be talking about, very quickly, we're going to be talking about the CBN Act of 1956 and the amendment of 1991 and 1998. Now, the CBN Act of 1956 and the amendment of 1991 and 1998, I beg your pardon. Now, we're going to be talking about that. CBN Act. I think I should write this up here. CBN Act of 19 CBN Act of 1956. CBN Act of 1950. That was supposed to be 56, not 58. What's going on? 56. CBN Act of 1956 and an amendment of 1991 and 1998 and amendment of 1991 and 1998. 1998. So we have one. We have first to maintain external reserve and safeguard of international value and legal tender. External reserve, maintain external reserve. Maintain external reserve first. Let our value, the value of our legal tender, have value. Let it be reasonable in other country. Extend external reserves and international value of our legal tender, and maintain external value and safeguard the international value, international value of a legal tendency, of the legal tendency. So we have that as that, and also to promote monetary stability, and a sound and efficient financial system. Promote monetary stability. Now, this is the act of CBN Act of 1956 and the amendment of 1991 and 1998, all this put together. One, it is the responsibility of the CBN to maintain external reserve and safeguard the international value of the legal tendency. It's quite unfortunate, our legal tendency these days as against dollar is losing value. Now we have promote monetary stability. I think about a few months ago we're having serious issue with circulations of cash circulation and everything. But now it's a bit, I think it's stable now. Yeah, it's stable now. And then we have act as a lender to the last resort. Lender of last resource. Lender of last resource. An act of banker and financial advisor. Financial advisor to the government. Financial advisor to the government. So, with this, call it a wrap for today. Wow. Okay, I believe we'll have gotten a lot, one or two, from tonight's class, and I'm expecting notes to be uploaded in the private class for as many of us who are in class, and for as many who are in the general class. Do well to upload your notes in the general class as well. It's one way we get to help each other in getting better at what we do. Let's not forget we are a community, and our sole purpose is to help assist each other in becoming the best we can become. Thank you very much, everyone, and tutorials continue tomorrow and throughout this week. It runs throughout this week and it runs throughout this semester. Thank you very much, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you in subsequent tutorial. Good night.